So, with this we come to the end of the course, and so I will be making some wrapping up arguments. So, to begin with, I will say that true integration in water society research is required, because we had already learnt so many ongoing river research frameworks or water research frameworks, from socio-hydrology to hydrosocial to political ecology to critical physical geography. So, these are the theoretical frameworks that we had learned. We had tried to little bit mobilize some of these frameworks within the empirical context of South Asia. So, finally, what is the message of this particular course? What is the big message that these course wants to end with? So, the big message is that multiple at multiple scales, at multiple levels, the knowledge has been generated now. So, we have new and newer knowledges, we have new and newer ontologies, epistemologies, etc. So, what is required today is a proper and truer integration across these various social science and natural sciences framework. So, there is a very exciting article which has been published by Evers et al. Last year in the journal called Water. So, MDPI journal reference is there in the reference list, and they have conceptualized what they call pluralistic water research. Now, this seems to be a very exciting and significant kind of framework, because here by pluralistic water research, Evers et al. They try to mean that this framework is not only a pluralistic framework, but they highlight and emphasize that it is also an integrative and interdisciplinary, maybe transdisciplinary approach, which aims to coherently and comprehensively integrate water human dimensions or human water dimension. So, this is, I think, very important, because this is the need of the hour. The need of the hour is to understand, is to integrate all the parameters and all the dimensions across water society relationships. So, maybe whether we can really think about a pluralistic water research framework that encompasses methods and methodologies across the different ongoing frameworks on water research. So, and yes, so I think I had already mentioned and argued that why this pluralistic approach is required, because we have, as I mentioned, that we have a different set of knowledge systems across these ongoing frameworks. For example, we have this IWRM, integrated water resource management, which became very popular since the 1990s. So, it was popularized in the 1992 Dublin conference, which said that the radical edge in it was that not only when you are actually trying to manage water, you not only have to manage water, but you also have to take into consideration other ecosystem resources that overlap with water as the primary ecological resource. So, apart from that, we have so many other frameworks, as we all know by now. By the end of this course, we have socio-hydrology, we have hydrosocial, we have political ecology, again hydrosociality within political ecology of water. So, the whole point is that as all these frameworks, they actually they had their origin from different disciplinary backgrounds. So, their goals are little different, and as their goals are different, their disciplinary backgrounds are different. So, their conceptualizations are also little different. So, though we should understand, and I would definitely argue that all these frameworks are unique and important and significant and relevant in a manner that all these frameworks actually try to integrate, try to forge some kind of an integration across natural and social sciences. They try to forge integration across physical, technical and social political aspects. But then the idea is that, and then the major point or argument is that as they are rooted in a different disciplinary context or a background, so the goals are different and the understanding and conceptualization and also the prescriptions and recommendations are slightly different. So, what we need to do is that, so we need to understand that all these frameworks being integrative, they still have different epistemologies, different ontologies, different methodologies and different axiologies. I am sorry I had not mentioned critical physical geography here. So, of course, critical physical geography should also be there in this list. So, they have different epistemologies, different ontologies, methodologies and axiologies. What we need to do is to see whether some sort of integration across these frameworks is also possible or not. It will obviously be challenging, it will definitely not be a one day affair, and it will definitely invite lot of problems and challenges where the natural scientists and social scientists, they have to really think and rethink in a very robust and rigorous manner. But then the whole idea is that we need to get exposed to all these frameworks to understand the potentials of these frameworks that had already emerged. Yes. So, again from the article by Evers and his colleagues that came out in Water. So, they tried to conceptualize pluralistic water research through this illustration, through this diagram. So, on one hand we have these sources. So, sources means rivers, groundwater, reservoirs, etc. And on the other hand users. So, users basically by users they mean human beings and their demand of water. And so, human beings and the demand of the sources, and these sources and users are actually shaped by reciprocal physical boundary and human boundary conditions that operate in a setting which they term as the human hydroscape. And in this entire thing, space, time and sensitivity, they are all key factors, they are all important parameters and variables so far as this human water interaction and processes of feedback and interlinkages are concerned. So, this seems to be really a kind of a very composite illustration that takes into consideration the physical sources on one hand, the human beings on the other, temporal scale, spatial scales, physical conditions, human boundary conditions and also sensitivity, and finally tries to study the processes of feedback or feedback loop and the interlinkages across this. So, yes, so definitely please go through the details of this diagram and let us try to think how in our local conditions or whether in our local conditions this illustration can play an important part so far as its application is concerned. Yes. So, finally, now this very important question, are all big interventions big follies? So, these debate seems to be a perennial debate among people coming from different disciplinary backgrounds and with different set of arguments and all. So, my argument from all these readings and from a little bit of my own research work and from my own exposure to field and all that, I would definitely go by Evers' argument and say that we need to keep this in mind. We really need to get into our mind that there cannot be only one single best answer to different kind of water problems, or for that matter environmental problems that we are encountering today. So, I mean, I would definitely say that there cannot be any universal set of principles and prescriptions which we can follow to provide solutions to different different ecologies, or for that matter different waters. So, there cannot be any single best answer to problems, and of course, different possible development paths, different possible alternative development paths and potentially desirable futures actually exist. So, I think I mean so far as the different lectures are concerned, so far as my lectures or presentations on the frameworks are concerned, and then the empirical validation I mean followed by that is concerned, I think by now we have been able to understand, we have been able to grapple with the very fact that actually different possible development paths exist. There is it is not a fact, but it is rather sometimes a juxtaposition that there is only one single path for a sustainable future. That is not true, because if we go by that particular thing that there is only one single path, then unfortunately I do not know, I mean that path might be feasible or not, but then that path will definitely not be sustainable, it would not be viable at the long term. So, this we need to very much keep in mind. So, I am highlighting this, we have to understand, we have to keep in mind that different possible paths, different alternatives actually exist. And the next point is, there is of course an immense need for locally tailored, politically sensitive, context specific pathways. So, of course, there is a link between these two. So, as I am saying that there cannot be any there cannot be a universal set of principles and prescriptions for problems across the world. So, what we need to come up with is that we have to really design locally tailored solutions which take care of the regional specificities, regional variables, and all these solutions should be political sensitive. Because today the kind of crisis that we are facing, and if we just take a look into its gravity, severity and intensity, then we have to understand that we also need participation from the people who are getting affected by these grand projects and schemes. So, at the end of the day, this political sensitivity is very much required. And as I argued previously also, that solutions or pathways should be extremely context specific, because contexts vary, contexts across the world, contexts across the regions, across countries are extremely diverse and they vary a lot. So, the pathways that we have to sketch, the pathways that we have to design should be extremely context specific. Otherwise, the solutions might seem to be what to say, it might seem to be very grand, it might seem to be very ambitious, but it will not be unfortunately effective. So, what we need to do is that we need to have a kind of a revolution. So, in conceptualizing, exploring and pursuing water research. So, I am not talking of some violent revolutions of course, but I am talking of revolutionizing our cognitive space at least as the first step to conceptualize, explore and pursue water research. I would elaborate a little bit on this. Okay, so I can be a little personal here because we have almost reached the end of the course. So, so often when I in my classes, here at IIT Kharagpur itself, when I teach students about the negative implications of for example, this multi-purpose river valley development schemes, the negative implications of these big so called scientific hydraulic interventions in for the Indian rivers, for Indian society at large. Then some of the students coming from these engineering and technical backgrounds, they most of the times actually they are not very happy with this staunch criticism with me, and they encounter me, and definitely I encourage that, and they mainly actually raise two questions. So, and they say that the first thing they argue is that they say that you are criticizing dams, you are criticizing barrages, you are criticizing all these important technological interventions. Then the question is, don't you think that these technologies also have some positive sides? And don't you think that these technological interventions are extremely important for the GDP of the country? So, this is one question that they ask. And the second question they say, that is also very valid. So, they say that we have to understand technology as continuous, I mean something which is continuously expanding, or which is continuously advancing for that matter. So, technology would go on advancing. So, as the temporal scale, or as time will advance, so similarly technology will also advance. So, one particular hydraulic intervention, I mean for example, hydraulic intervention of the contemporary time would be of course more robust and more sophisticated, and for that matter more I mean bigger and grand than the technological intervention of the preceding years or the preceding century. So, this is quite natural. So, why are you continuously saying that these technologies had been disruptive and all that? So, my answer to them, or my responses to them, are also two. So, as there is mainly these two questions. So, I also try to give two answers to these two questions. So, one answer, the first answer is basically, so far as the second question is concerned, that technology will actually we have to understand technology as something which will go on advancing with the advancement of time. My caution and warning to you will be, never try to understand technology from that perspective, because technology should not be understood and should not be studied as linear progression. We really need to understand a technology, or for that matter networks, as responses to specific construction of problems. So, we need to raise some important questions, that why during a particular period a particular problem was prioritized. Who were the players who actually prioritized these problems? Like why other problems did not get that much of prominence or importance during that point of time? Were there alternative or other technological choices or options that could have been implemented to meet that particular problem? So, if yes, then why those technological choices were not selected, and those technological options were not opted and chosen to solve that particular problem? So, these are the larger, I mean these are the larger questions that we need to address. So, we need to really understand technology by looking into the larger historical and political processes at work. So, this is the first thing, first argument, and second argument is little personal, which is very much informed also by my personal research, personal investigation, personal exposure to the field, and also personal observations. Like so far, I mean I have done some research in the lower Gangetic basin, and so far from my limited research expertise is concerned, I have gained some insights and I have really understood to a great extent the gap that exists between official projection, so far as construction of dams, barrages, or these big infrastructural projects are concerned, and the ground realities. So, what I suggest them, what I ask them, what I even request my students to do is to sometime go to the project sites, sometime go to the research site, get exposed, talk to the people, hear from them, learn from their perspectives, so that you can go at least little bit beyond the so called mainstream scientific and technological set of knowledge or knowledge system. So, yes, so with that we started doing things at of course very granular and I mean small scale. So, this is this was a course that we try to organize at the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences. I mean this was an AICT QIP short term course, and this course was very important because mainly the people whom we tried to train, and not only train, but from whom we also learnt a lot, because there were lot of interactions between the instructors and the participants. So, we try to do a course on what we call combining hydrology and hydrosocial towards comprehensive understanding of river systems. So, the whole idea was also to give those participants mainly coming from engineering backgrounds to some perspectives, some social science perspectives on hydraulic or riverine systems and hydraulic technologies. So, so on one hand we gave our social science, provided insights from our social science perspectives. On the other hand, we also learned from their natural science insights and perspectives. So, overall it was a very good interaction between the natural scientists and the among the natural scientists and the social scientists, and we were really brainstorming a lot, thinking about what could be done and what should not be done and all those things. And this was so important because it was so complementary, because these engineers, they made us understand many things, many variables that otherwise we actually cannot see, or otherwise we do not realize the importance of those technical aspects when we do our social science research on water. On the other hand, they themselves they confess that for the first time they are getting exposure to kind of frameworks, to kind of narratives, to kind of perspectives which they felt were so very important for them to learn before they actually design technological interventions or infrastructural projects. So, this was one, and then it was followed by a very very what to say, a very limited but simple, I will say, so a simple survey where the few faculty members who came from some of our local regional colleges, they were so excited after this 7-day workshop that they requested us to go to their colleges and to talk to the students and to have some interactions, to involve the students in some interactions about this water society relationship. And they told that it is important for you to understand and talk to them and know their perspectives, because these engineers, these faculty coming from engineering backgrounds, they realized at the end of the day that people's perspectives, students perspectives, participant perspectives are also very important. So, what we did, we kept 3 very simple questions, and I would also like to acknowledge my instructor, actually 2 co-instructors I had in this particular thing. So, one is from she is a researcher from the University of Lausanne, she is Flore Lafayette Michu, and another one is my colleague from the HSS department, she is Anuradha Chaudhary. So, what we did was that we formulated these simple questions, went to those colleges and then asked the students just to react to these questions, just to write their responses. So, these are the 3 simple questions. What is the river or water body you know the best? So, what we tried to do was that we tried to personalize the whole thing. So, just asking, so here the agency is given to the river and also to the respondent who was responding to this particular question. So, what is the river or water body you know the best? So, see, it is such a simple question, but then you really need to think so much, and really you become passionate, really you start internalizing yourself with that particular river or that particular river body, and you have so many things in your memories that you can reflect on. The second question was, when did you interact it for the first time? When did you interact with that river, or when did you interact with it for the first time? What do you recall from that experience? Again, a very very interesting and kind of a personal thing that we asked, that actually provided them lot of insights to think about their memories, their narratives about that particular space, that particular river. Followed by, what are your interactions now with this river or water body? So, what are your, so there will be a question mark, sorry. So, what are your interactions now with this river? So, then when we ask that what are your interactions now, so what we could do was that we are actually evolving a kind of a temporal scale. So, maybe the I mean there are three options, like the river continues to maintain its good health or whatever, like it has maintained its physical form quite similarly. So, it is now what it used to be before. It has changed from what it has used to be from before, and then maybe it has massively changed from what it used to be before. So, there can be multiple reactions, and we knew that these multiple reactions would or responses would be generated, and so we added another argument or statement to this question, that is, describe your actions, gestures and practices. So, what I am saying is that, so we try to provide agency to both the river or the water body and the person who was actually responding. And we had actually collected these answer sheets from them, and very beautiful reflections, personal messages, and also some technical know-hows are reflected in the answers that we had received, and later we have plans to interpret those answers in further details, and try to to a great extent understand water society interactions from these kind of these kind of personal anecdotes and personal feelings, also sometimes loaded with technical knowledge and expertise. Yes. So, so I would definitely not like to conclude my course by drawing your attention again to the severities of the water sector or water crisis that the country or the South, or for that matter South Asia and even the globe is encountering with, but rather I would like to definitely end the course on a positive note by drawing your attention to what good things are going on so far as water society relationship is concerned. So, definitely some of the radical initiatives that are going on these days are like human rights are being given to rivers. So, rivers are being considered as legal and living entities. So, we know that our Uttarakhand High Court, it passed a verdict where it said that Ganges and Yamuna should be considered as living entities, and it was very much influenced by what happened in New Zealand. So, in New Zealand, Wanganui River was given human rights, and before that also actually we should also know about Ecuador, because Ecuador is a very significant country so far as environmental restoration projects and practices are concerned. The people are extremely sensitive to nature, because the Ecuadorian constitution is the only constitution in the world that provides constitutional rights to nature. So, like I mean there were some problems related to Vilcabamba river in Ecuador, and then the people fought against the pollution. I mean they filed a petition and they fought a legal case to restore the health of the river, and of course they won the case. So, this is what happened in Ecuador even before the legal verdict that came out in New Zealand so far as Wanganui river was concerned. So, the Indian government also became very interested, and Uttarakhand High Court, as I mentioned, provided a legal right to Ganges and Yamuna, where it was said that these rivers should be considered as legal entities. But again there is also a slight note of caution. I am very sorry, because as social scientists always we try to find out these notes of caution, and it is very important for us. We cannot really ignore these notes of caution. So, the note of caution is that if we try to compare between what had happened in New Zealand and what had happened in India so far as giving legal rights to rivers is concerned, we will find that though there are similarities between the same, but at the same time there are also stark differences and contradictions. Now, what are these differences? Number one, in this Wanganui case, it very much the legal verdict, it very much actually represented, or I mean it was it highlighted the worldview of the Maori people, the tribal people, the indigenous people who actually fought the battle to save the for the river. So what is this worldview of these people? The worldview of the indigenous people is very well manifested or reflected or represented in this brilliant and fascinating quote, "I am the river and the river is me." So, this is how the Maori people feel. So, I am the river and the river is me. So, you can understand their worldview. Now, the question is, and so what happened is that the court has given the court has recognized or regarded these people as the quote unquote parent of this Wanganui river. So, these people with this kind of a worldview, they are the custodians of this river. But on the other hand, unfortunately, so far as Ganges and Yamuna rivers are concerned, the legal custodianship has been given to the officials, the government officials. So, of course, you can understand like there is this difference between the worldview of these indigenous people and of course, the worldview of the government officials. So, this is one criticism, and the other criticism is that this is a very composite verdict, because the New Zealand court, it had mentioned that as this river from now on will have human rights. So, it not only means it is not only implied for this particular river, but for the entire catchment and the basin. That is, you cannot pollute, you cannot do harm to, you cannot affect any stretch of the river from the mountains to the sea, and also the entire catchment area where even there are multiple natural water courses which flow either continuously or intermittently to this river. So, this entire basin and the entire catchment along with the entire stretch of the river will be maintained and restored properly and will be thought like a human being. On the other hand, so far as Ganges and Yamuna rivers are concerned, we can see so many contradictions, so many plans and initiatives and projects relating to interlinkages, relating to construction of dams, barrages, all this kind of human intervention to the river. So, from that perspective, and also another thing is that in this Indian court verdict, what happened is that the catchment or the wetlands or the natural courses, water courses connected to this river system had not been mentioned. So, this is a problem that is there, but again I will not only draw your attention to all these negative aspects, but there are other small scale positive radical things which are really going on. For example, so I am only giving you the recent examples. So, if you take a look into what happened so far as this particular river in Kerala is considered, is that within I think 70 days 700 people of this particular village panchayat from Kerala, they could actually restore the entire stretch of river which was otherwise dead. So, the river was reborn, and you can see this picture is so lively. So, all these people taking a ferry ride on this river, and you can see from the picture that how within a small span of time people's initiative, popular initiative could actually give life, brought back life to a particular river which otherwise became stagnant and dead. So, how a river was reborn in Kerala. So, finally, my final suggestion is that we really need to, as I said, revolutionize. So, I will also say radicalize. So, we need to radicalize river research, we need to radicalize water research. Now, how can we do that? Now, this will of course draw a lot of questions. So, everyone will raise question, what do you mean when you say, what do you mean by radicalizing river research, or what do you mean by radicalizing water research? So, this is again I must say that I will not be able to draw a detailed closure statement, but I can definitely provoke you to think and rethink. So, my argument, first argument is that we need to reconfigure our understanding of water and our understanding of river systems. So, we need to reconfigure our understanding of river system. This will be the first step, followed by we need to reconceptualize from what we had already learned and the new and newer set of knowledge or set of information now that are available to us across disciplines, across natural sciences, across social sciences. So, we had learned the potentials and we had learned the different methods and methodologies of the various frameworks that are prevalent today, that are emerging today so far as water research is concerned. So, we really need to reconceptualize our understanding by focusing on our existing knowledge system and also the newer knowledge that are there in our contemporary times. So, the second step then is reconceptualization. Followed by, so when we would be able to reconceptualize this, then the next step would be redefining river systems, river basin, redefining waters, because when I say waters, so I mean plural waters, many waters. So, wetlands, lakes, reservoirs, an entire connected system at the basin scale. So, then we need to the third step, we can redefine waters, we can redefine river systems, we can redefine river basins in order to come up with more larger, comprehensive, composite, robust picture finally with the purpose of reconciling our relationship with water. So, reconciling, the final step followed by redefining is reconciling human nature or redefining or reconciling water society interactions towards a just, democratic, desirable and sustainable future. And I want all of you not to be learners in this particular exercise, but to be active participant in this exciting venture. Thank you all.